Hey guys, welcome. So this is the physics sample question paper issued by CBSE for the term 1 examination 2021 to 22. So I have already done a video about the mathematics sample paper, the full sample paper solution. So I will ask you to check it out if you are a student and if you wish. So, but I do not know if I will be able to do one for chemistry because I am terrible at chemistry. But anyway, that's not the point. So let's start it. So I am not going over the pattern and like any tips or anything because there are a lot of YouTube channels that will give you tips on how to solve the examinations. So let me directly just only solve the questions without wasting any time. So first of all, which of the following is not the property of equipotential surface? So I have done some videos about the physics topics about all the chapters except electromagnetic induction and magnetism and matter, which I will be doing by today or maximum by tomorrow. So please stay tuned. So once you go through that videos, these questions I think you will be able to solve, but I cannot explain each and every topic in this video. So I'm assuming that you have some prerequisite, you have some knowledge of it. So I'm just assuming that and I'm solving the questions. So like I'm assuming that you know what is the meaning of equipotential surfaces, the surface at which the potential is same at every point. So they do not cross each other. This is a true statement because if they cross each other, then the electric field will have two values at the same point. That is not possible. So which of the following is not the property? So first one is a property. The rate of change of potential with distance on them is 0. Obviously the potential is same on all the points. So the rate of change of potential will be 0. There is no change in potential. For a uniform electric field, they are concentric spheres. Yeah, for a uniform electric field, they are not concentric spheres. For a uniform electric field, suppose here we have a uniform electric field. So the potential surface is like this. For a point charge, it is a sphere, but not for a uniform electric field. So this is not a property. So our option will be option number 3. We don't need to read option number 4 because option number 3 will definitely be your answer. Anyway, they can be imaginary spheres, so obviously they can be imaginary spheres. Like if we have take a collection of charges, but we consider them to be very far, like from a very far distance, we consider they can be approximated to be a point charge. So in that case, we can approximate them to be imaginary spheres, the equipotential surface. Equipotential surface can be spheres definitely. Next is 2 point charges, plus 8q and minus 2q are located at x equals 0 and x equals L respectively. The point on x-axis where the net electric field is 0 due to these charges. So we have plus 8q here and we have minus 2q here. So according to the question, this is at x equal to 0, this 8q, and this is at x equal to L. So this much distance is L. So we have to find out where the point on x-axis where the net electric field will be 0. So first of all, these two charges, they are dividing the x-axis into 3 regions. One is this region, one is this region, one is this region. Now we have to determine where will the electric charge be 0. The electric field will be 0, the net electric field. So let this be 1 and let this be 2. Okay, I hope you can make it out. I'm holding the camera myself and I'm doing the questions myself. So I know it's becoming hazy at times. I'm extremely sorry for that, but please bear with me. So suppose let us assume that the electric potential, the electric field is 0 at the center. Let us assume somewhere at the center, somewhere between. We don't know where. So let us assume. Now will it be true? Because see, here we have a plus 8q and here we have minus 2q, and in the center let me bring a positive test charge plus q. So due to plus 8q, this will just repel this plus because positive repels. And minus will again attract the plus. So both the electric fields will be acting in the same direction. So they can never be 0. They will always be in the same direction. Similarly, in this case, now consider in this region, it can be 0 in this region. It can be 0. But see the 8q, it's a large, like 8q, it's a large in magnitude. So that's why this 8q will be dominating force. But in this region, if you see nicely, minus 2q is nearer. So suppose I bring a test charge plus q. So due to minus 2q, it will be pulled nearer. Due to plus 8q, it will be pushed further. Now this plus 8q is big, but it is also far away. So this electric field is inversely proportional to the distance. So to the distance squared. So that means here we have a possibility that our electric field will be 0. So we have to take some point x here. Suppose some distance x. So where suppose here the electric field is 0. We need to find this, or we don't know where exactly the electric field will be 0. So what is the condition? So the electric field due to this point should be equal to the electric field due to this point. Should be equal to, obviously otherwise they will not be 0. So electric field is kq, so k 8q over r square. So the first, it is L plus x squared should be equal to 2kq or k2q, whatever you write, over this distance. So there is only x squared. Sorry, this is x, okay? This distance is x, not this. This much distance is x. So the total distance is x plus L. X plus L, and this is x squared. So these things will get cancelled now. So 4, I can write 2 square. So 2 over L plus x whole square equal to 1 over x whole square. That means from here you can solve, and you, like let us solve. So 2 over L plus x equals 1 over x. So 2x equals 1 plus x. 2x minus x equals, sorry, this is L. So x equals L. So basically if x is L, that means this x is the same distance L. So the total distance will be L plus x, that is L plus L, that is 2L. And you see that is the answer, 2L. So we'll be trying to do this in as fast as possible because it's a pretty lengthy paper actually. Like if you consider all the calculations which you have to do, it's a pretty lengthy paper. But anyway, electric dipole of moment P is placed parallel to the uniform electric field. The amount of work done, parallel means theta is 0. In the first case, theta is 0. Theta 1 is 0. The amount of work done in rotating the, if they say anti-parallel, then theta 1 would have been 180 degree. So the amount of work done in rotating the dipole by 90 degrees. So obviously work done is P dot E. So P cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2. So PE cos 0, that is 1, minus cos 90, that is 0. So that's just P. That is the answer, just P. Next is 3 capacitors, 2, 3 and 6 microfarads are joined in series with each other, the equivalent capacitance. So in case of capacitors, if they joined in series, the equivalent capacitance 1 by C equivalent is just the formula which we use for parallel resistors. 1 by 2 plus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 6. So this is, you see, 6 by 6, so 1. So C equivalent will be 1 inverse, so that will be 1 only. So you see 1 microfarad. 2 point charges placed in a medium of dielectric constant 5 are at a distance r between them, experience an electrostatic force F. Electrostatic force between them in vacuum and the same distance r will be. So see, initially the electrostatic force is, so see what they are saying, 2 point charges placed in a medium of dielectric constant. So they are placed in a medium of dielectric constant K is 5. So F equals, so the actual force will be the F naught. F naught means when they are kept in vacuum, divided by K, that is F naught divided by 5. So F naught will be 5F. So they are actually asking for the value of F naught because they are asking the electrostatic force between them in vacuum at the same distance r will be. So that will be equal to 5F obviously. Next is, which statement is true for Gauss law? All the charges whether inside or outside the Gaussian surface contribute to the electric flux. No. When you are calculating the electric field, then you have to take into account all the charges, but electric flux is only the charge enclosed, Q enclosed by epsilon naught. So only the charge enclosed that will contribute to the electric flux. Electric flux depends upon the geometry of the Gaussian surface. No. Gauss theorem can be applied to non-uniform electric field. This is actually at our level, this is no. And then the electric field over the Gaussian surface remains continuous and uniform at every point. This is a valid assumption. So this will be the option. A capacitor plates are charged by a battery with V volts. After charging, battery is disconnected and the dielectric slab with dielectric constant K is inserted between the plates. The potential across the plates of the capacitor will become. So see, capacitance is epsilon naught A by D. Suppose capacitance 1 and capacitance 2, in the case dielectric is inserted between them, that is epsilon naught A K by D. And we know Q equals CV, so voltage will be Q by C. Now capacitor plate charged by V volts, after charging battery is inserted dielectric. So the charge will remain same in both the cases. So the potential across the plates of the capacitor will become in the second case. So V1 will be Q will remain same, Q into epsilon naught A. So this case V2 will be QD over epsilon naught A K. So that is V1 by K. So see, V by K, it is the potential across the plates in the second case, that will become V by K. We're just dividing it by K. That is what we're getting. V1, here we assume V1, so V1 by K. Okay. Next is the best instrument for accurate measurement of EMF. That is, EMF means the potential difference of a cell, that is potentiometer. Because see, meter bridge is usually used to measure the unknown resistance. Voltmeter, ammeter and voltmeter, these are actually, the potentiometer is the best instrument. Next is, an electric current is passed through a circuit containing 2 wires of same material connected in parallel. So they are connected in parallel. Okay. Let me do it. So if the lengths and radii of the wires are in the ratio 3:2 and 2:3, then the ratio of the current passing through the wire will be lengths and radii of the wires and the ratio. So length L1 is to L2 I'm writing 3:2, R1 is to R2 I'm writing 2:3. Okay. So we have to find out the ratio of the current passing through them. Now they are connected in parallel means the voltage will be the same. So V equals IR. So I1 R1 will be equal to I2 R2, or I1 by I2, that is the current passing through them, should be equal to R2 by R1. Now what is R? R is rho L by A, rho L2 by A2 over rho L1 by A1. Now resistivity will be the same because they have mentioned that for the same material, two wires of the same material. So we can cancel rho. So L2 into A2 into A1, sorry, L2 over A2 into A1 over L1. So actually we should assume 3K, 2K, but they will ultimately cancel out. So I'm just directly writing. So L2 is 2, A2 is 3, A1 is, oh no, wait a second. L2 is 2 and A2 is pi R square, A2 is pi R2 square. So R2 pi will again cancel out because we have a A1 here. So R2 square basically. Now R2 is 3 square is 9. So 2 over 9 into A1 is again A1. So area 1 radius 1 squared into 4 over L1 is 3. So 8:27. You see the ratio is coming 8:27, and that is the answer, 8:27. Next is by increasing the temperature, the specific resistance of a conductor and a semiconductor. So obviously see the specific resistance means of a conductor it will increase, but for a semiconductor it will decrease. Why? Now I will not be able to explain you entirely in this video, but see, for a semiconductor, by increasing the temperature the resistance decreases so that we get some conductivity. But for a conductor the specific resistance will always increase with the temperature. Option will be option 3. This was question number 10. Yeah, option 3. Yeah, specific resistance of conductor increases or semiconductor decreases with increased temperature. Actually, this is that formula, like coefficient of, like with the temperature increase, that alpha, that formula you have to use. Nothing else. Next is we use alloys for making standard resistors because they have obviously low temperature coefficient of resistivity and high specific resistance, because we are making resistors. So we want high resistance. So specific resistance must be high. And low temperature coefficient, why? Because see, we do not want such resistors that the resistance will vary too much with temperature. We want resistor where resistance will not vary too much with temperature. So that means the temperature coefficient of resistivity should be low. So that is the answer. Next is this question. You see a constant voltage is applied between the two ends of a uniform metallic wire. Heat H is developed in it. If another wire of the same material, double the radius and twice the length as compared to the original wire is used, then the heat developed in it will be. So yeah, we have some space in this paper, in this page. So let us do it. Constant voltage is applied. So they have given constant voltage. So which formula we have to use? H is I square RT. So I square R, I we can write, see, I is what? V by R, V equals IR. So I is V by R. So we can write V square by R, V square by R square actually, but 1 R will cancel. So V square RT, we can write like this, V square by RT. So the constant voltage is, why we are writing in terms of V square? Because constant voltage they have given. So V is constant. So we can write H is proportional to 1 by R. Now what they have given, if another wire of the, so a constant voltage is applied between the two ends of a uniform metallic wire. Heat H is developed in it. If another wire of the same material, double the radius and twice the length. So this H proportional to R. So R is rho L by A. So this is H proportional to, we can write A by L. Rho is rho is the same material they have given, two same material. Another wire of the same material. This is another wire of the same material. So ignore rho. So A by L. So the new H will be, we are doubling the radius and we are doubling the length. So A square, A is pi R square and length is just 2L and this is 2R square. So 4. So 4 to cancel 2. I'm just doing it in rough. So actually this will become 2 times. You see 2 times of H. You can just check out do the original calculation and check it out that it will become 2 or not, because see, we are just, okay, let me do it. So H is proportional to 1 by R or H is V square by R. Let us directly write H is V square by R, V square RT. So proportional to 1 by r means what? It is proportional to 1 by r is what? L over a, so a will come here, that is pi r square over L. So if you are doubling this radius, that means 2 square, this will become 4, and doubling the length, so 1 to cancel, so 2 pi r square over L, that means 2h, right? Next is, we have already wasted 15 minutes. I mean not wasted, sorry, but yeah, we have to run fast because, anyway. Question 13, if the potential difference B applied across the conductor is increased to 2 volt, actually this is not 2 volt, the V is becoming 2V, that means we are doubling the potential difference. Its temperature is kept constant, the drift velocity of the free electron. So see, drift velocity is what? Vd is, it is directly proportional to the potential difference. It is minus EV into tau over M, something like that, I guess. I forget the denominator actually, but I mean it was directly proportional to V, that is for sure. So if we double the potential, the drift velocity will also become double of its initial value. The equivalent resistance, this question is a bit, it has not come properly, so let me draw it first of all in this paper. Give me 1 second. Oh, just a sec. It's very irritating very problematic to do the video with my left hand and writing with my right hand. So anyway, the question is this. First let me draw it, then I'm showing you the figure. This is 3 ohm, I'm not writing the ohms. This is 6 ohm. This is 8 ohms. And this is 30 ohms. Yeah, so this is what they've given us. Now they have to find the equivalent resistance across A and B. This is B and this is A. So basically see, first current is coming from A, then current is dividing into 2 parts. That means 3 and then again current is divided into 2 parts here. So 3 and 6 will be in parallel. So basically 3, 6, they will be in parallel. Then 6 and 8 in series in the sense like this. Here 8. And this 3 is parallel to this entire combination. So this 30, this is 30. So 30 like this. So 3 and 6 parallel means 1 by R equivalent will be 1 by 3 plus 1 by 6, that is 2 plus 1, 3 by 6, so that is 1 by 2. So R equivalent will be 2. 2 plus 8 will be 10. So basically we will have 10 and 13 parallel. So 10 and 13 parallel will be 1 by 10 plus 1 by 30, 1 by R final. So that is 30, 3 plus 1, 4 by 30. So R final will be 15 by 2. I mean 30 by 4, so 15 by 2. That is 7.5 ohms. You see the answer is 7.5 ohms. 7.5 ohms. I have actually, I have seen the solutions from the internet and I have marked all the answers here. So except 1 or 2 questions, I have not seen the solutions. So I am solving it on my own right here. But yeah, for 1 or 2 questions which I could not do, I have seen the solutions. But anyway, so these answers are all correct. You can count me on that. And I am just showing you how these answers are coming in this video. Answers though you can see from the internet as well. The SI unit of magnetic field intensity. So magnetic field is B is, so we know that a magnetic force is QVB. Sin theta is no unitless, so QVB. So B will be dimension of F over dimension of QV. So force is Newton. Charge, see, they have given it in terms of ampere, so we have to convert it in terms of current. So I equals Q by T. So Q we can write IT. So in place of Q I am writing IT. And velocity is distance by time. So distance means meters, or let me write L, distance L over T. So T cancel. So Newton, this is for I we have ampere inverse and then 1 L. So meter inverse. So see, that is the option. Newton, ampere inverse, meter inverse. The coil of a, this is a factual question, like I will not be able to explain you the entire concept here, but you should know this, like the coil of a moving coil galvanometer is wound over a metal frame in order to provide electromagnetic damping. Actually electromagnetic damping, this occurs out of eddy currents. Eddy currents are there, like in electromagnetic induction we will be covering this topic. I will be dropping a video on that by tomorrow or today itself. So due to this eddy currents it's happening, and electromagnetic damping means what? Means if it will, suppose the moving coil galvanometer, it will come to rest quickly. Next is 2 wires of the same length are shaped into a square of side A and a circle with radius R. So area of square will be A square area of circle will be pi r square. Now they carry and they have the same length. That means 2 pi r. That the circumference of the circle will be equal to 4a. So, or this will be equal because same length. So that means pi r equals 2a. So from here we can see what they've asked. And area we can write. Now area we have no wait a second. If they carry the same current, the ratio of their magnetic moment. Now magnetic moment we know is I into A. So M1 by M2 will be same current. So I cancel A1 by A2. So A1 by A2 means, suppose first of all they have given two wires shaped into a square and a circle. So first they have given square. So A square over pi r square. So now from here we have to find the value of A by r. So A by r is pi by 2. From here I am writing A by r is pi by 2. So A square by r square is pi square over 4 pi. So 1 pi square cancel. So pi is to 4 the answer I am getting. Actually that is the answer. Pi is to 4. So section A questions are pretty simple actually. The horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field at a place is √3 times the vertical component. So first of all, suppose draw a simple triangle. Horizontal component is this and vertical component is this. Suppose this is horizontal component H, vertical component V. So tan theta, actually it is called del, the angle of dip. But I'm just showing you the concept. So tan theta will be V by H. Now they have given that horizontal component of magnetic field is 3 times vertical component. That means they have given H equals √3V. They have given H equals √3V, right? Horizontal component is √3 times the vertical component. So V by H will be 1 by √3. So V by H will be 1 by √3. So if V by H is 1 by √3 and V by H is also tan theta, so tan theta is 1 by √3, which indicates that theta must be pi by 6. Otherwise it's not possible. 1 by √3 means pi by 6. So pi by 6 will be the answer. The small angle between magnetic axis and geographical axis at a place is called magnetic declination. Again a factual question. Two coils are placed close to each other. The mutual inductance. So again mutual inductance we have not covered on YouTube yet, but I have not taught that on YouTube, but I will be dropping a video about electromagnetic induction by today itself. So the mutual induction depends on the relative position and orientation of the coils. Next is the conducting. This is like a favorite question of mine because this question is a very nice question. A conducting square loop of side L and resistance R. So you have to be aware of the concept of motional EMF and Faraday's law. So side L and resistance R moves in its plane with the moves in its plane with the uniform velocity v perpendicular to one of its sides. So yeah, sorry, I was getting carried away. So magnetic induction be constant in time and space. Constant in magnetic field, actually magnetic field B is constant in time and space, pointing perpendicular and into the plane of the paper, like pointing like this. Constant in time and space means it's constant everywhere. It's not like the magnetic field has ended here. It is going on. So the current induced in the loop will be, so when current is induced, when EMF is induced, and when is EMF induced? When there is a change in the magnetic flux. So BA cos theta, magnetic flux is, so when there is a change in this flux, only then, but see B is not changing, this is moving with some velocity definitely, but the B is stretching infinitely, so it's moving through B, so the number of lines passing through it, that is not changing. Area of the square is constant, that is not changing. No, sorry, this is not motion of the EMF constant, I said motion of the EMF, that was not, anyway you don't need that. And cos theta is also not changing. I'm moving it in just like this. So 0. Magnetic current induced is 0. Magnetic flux linked with the coil in Weber is given by, oh sorry, I wrote this with pen on the final paper. Never mind. The magnetic flux linked with the coil in Weber is given by, so phi is given 5t square plus 3t plus 16. They have asked the EMF induced in the coil at time t equals 4. So d phi by dt will be how much? 5 to the 10t, 10 to the 2 minus 1, so 10t plus 3 at t equals to 4. So wait, they have asked the induced EMF. So induced EMF is minus d phi dt. So minus, then at 10 to the 4, so that is 10 into 4 plus 3, 43. So minus 43 will be the answer. You see that's the answer, minus 43 volts. Okay. Next we have which of the following graphs represent the variation of the current I with frequency f in the AC circuit containing a type of containing a pure capacitor. So AC actually alternating current I taught a long time ago, but I have not taught, like I taught it a long time ago, but I will maybe do a video on it if you say. So anyway, let us focus on the question now. Pure capacitor means what? Capacitive reactance. What is capacitive reactance? So V equals IR. Ohm's law we can apply. So voltage will be alternating current I into capacitive reactance, that is XC. So the formula for XC is 1 over omega C or 1 over 2 pi FC. Omega is the angular frequency, 2 pi F. So they are the graph between a current with frequency. So see, I we can write V 2 pi C F we can write. So I is directly proportional to F. This everything else is constant. So this is F, this is I. So that means I should increase with F. So the only possible graph is this C graph. 20 volt AC is applied to a circuit consisting of a resistance and a coil with negligible resistance. Coil means you have to assume inductor. Okay. So if the voltage across the resistance is 12 volt, the voltage across the coil means obviously inductor. Otherwise they would have mentioned capacitor or condenser or something like that. So this is pretty simple actually if you know the LCR circuit concept, basic concept of LCR circuit. So basically in LCR circuit we have the impedance, that is the Z equals to R square, that is the resistance square, plus plus XL minus XC squared. This is the inductive reactance, this is the capacitive reactance, but here we have no capacitor consisting of a resistance and a coil with negligible resistance. So no capacitor we are having, and coil is negligible resistance means, so we just have to, so in this case no capacitor means this you forget. So just R square plus XL square, this will become R square plus this you forget, R square plus XL square. So resistance, so 20 volt AC is supplied. Now in this case see, the voltage will not add up. It's not like 20 volt AC is supplied, so the voltage across the resistance is 12 volt, so this will be 8 volt. 20 minus 12 is 8. No, the voltages in this case with the voltage they bear a phase relationship with one another, phasor diagram, phase graph, phase relationship. So in this case what you have to do is that, like just like the impedance, if we just multiply I with them, then you will get the current. So IZ is the voltage. So voltage will be under root of VR square plus VL square. So 20 will be under root of 12 square is 12 volt given to, so 12 square is 144 plus this you have to find VL square. So 20 square is 400 minus 144 equals to VL square. So that is VL square, you will get 16. 400 minus 144 is 256. So you will get 256 under root. So 16 volt is your answer. The instantaneous values of EMF and the current in a series AC circuit are E equals E naught sin omega t and I equals I naught sin omega t plus pi by 3. So again this is a phase, if you draw the phasor diagram basically. So suppose this is E is E naught sin omega t and I is omega t plus pi by 3. So I is exceeding, E is lagging behind, I is forward, I is exceeding E by a phase angle of pi by 3. So this is possible when only, like see, it's possible, for this again I will not go deep into the concept, but this is possible, it's necessarily a RL circuit, necessarily a RC circuit, necessarily a LCR circuit, can be RC or LCR circuit, it will definitely be, can be RC or LCR circuit, because in case of LCR circuit obviously there is a phase difference between the current and the voltage, it can be an LCR circuit. RC circuit also there is a current is exceeding the voltage, so it can be RC and LCR circuit. I will ask you to check my video about ordinary current if you would like to know the concept in more detail, because I will not be able to discuss it in this video like in detail. A cylinder of radius R and length L is placed in a uniform electric field parallel to the axis of the cylinder. The total flux for the surface of the cylinder is given by. So this is pretty simple, right? Like total flux for the surface, suppose we have the cylinder here. So surface of the cylinder. So suppose let us first consider the flux through the cylinder. So we have three surfaces here. One is this end. So this is my area. So the area vector will be like this outward. One is this end. This is my area. So area vector will be like this outward. And one is this curved surface. So see, the electric field is in this direction. So in these cases the area vector and the electric field, they are like same direction. So cos 180 or cos 0, that will be 1 or minus 1. So we will get some flux, but the flux in this case, suppose flux in this case, this is 1, this is 2 and this is 3. So phi 1 will be equal to minus phi 2. So phi 1 plus phi 2 plus phi 3 will be equal to 0. Why? Because phi 3 is 0 and phi 1 plus phi 2 is 0 from this case, so 0 plus 0 is 0. Why is phi 3 0? Because see, this is the curved surface area, so the area vector will be upward like this, but the electric field is like this. So theta is 90. Now cos 90 is 0. What is the formula for flux? Formula for flux is cos theta. Like we have the dot product, right? So cos theta. So cos 90 will be 0. So E dot S dot cos. So E dot S, that is E del S cos theta. So cos theta will be 0. So answer will be 0. Cylinder radius r and length L is placed in uniform electric field parallel to the axis. Electric field is parallel to the axis. That is what we have done. They have given. So total flux for the surface of the cylinder is given by 0. Next is two parallel large thin metal sheets have equal surface densities. Surface density means your surface density means, see the unit, coulomb per meter square. So Q over area, charge over area, that is your sigma, surface density. So two parallel large thin metal sheets, they have surface density of opposite signs. So the electric field between these sheets is, so opposite signs given. So ultimately what will happen, they will add up. Sigma over 2 epsilon naught for one, minus sigma over 2 epsilon naught. So basically you get sigma over epsilon naught, simply sigma over epsilon naught. So epsilon naught is 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12, and this is again given to 26 to the power minus 12. So you can just calculate them and you get 3 Newton per Coulomb answer. Consider an uncharged conducting sphere. A positive point charge is placed outside the sphere. The net charge on the sphere is 10. So outside the sphere, not on the surface of the, it's just placed near the sphere outside. So we have a sphere here whose net charge was initially 0. We place a charge here plus Q. So this, due to this plus Q inductive effect, this minus charges will come closer, but the plus charges will come here. But the net charge on this is still 0. So the net charge will be 0. Next, three charges 2Q, minus Q and minus Q lie at the vertices of a triangle. Just a triangle, not equilateral triangle or not anything like that. So the value of E and V at center of triangle will be. So center of triangle means basically the center of the triangle. So this is plus 2Q, suppose this is minus Q, this is minus Q. Now potential is a scalar, so potential will be added up. So K 2Q over the distance will be same because it's the centroid. So suppose the distance is R. So K 2Q over R, total potential will be K 2Q over R for this minus KQ over R minus KQ over R. So this is minus K 2Q over R. So this is 0. So potential is 0. So one thing is sure that potential is 0. And this is not hashtag. We social media guys, we are used to this hashtag symbol. This is actually not equal to. Okay. They have given it as a hashtag. So V will be equal to 0. So either option 2 or option 3. Now will E be 0? Obviously E will not be 0. E will be not equal to 0. So option 3 will be the correct answer. Why E will not equal to be 0? Because electric field is not a scalar quantity. We cannot add up the electric field. It's a vector quantity. So suppose put a test positive charge here plus small q test charge. So due to this plus q, plus will push plus further away. They will repel. So like this minus will pull it closer towards it. So like this minus will pull it closer like this. So the net electric force is acting downwards. There is a net electric field. It is not 0. The field is not becoming 0. So option 3. Next is two parallel but capacitors X and Y have the same area of plates and same separation between plates. X has air and Y has dielectric constant 2 between its plates. They are connected in series to a battery of 12 volt. The ratio of electrostatic energy stored in X and Y will be. So one thing you have to remember. Ratio of energy, we can use many formulas. Half CV square or Q squared by 2C. Q squared by 2C. These formulas we can use for the energy stored. But here they have given they are connected in series. Connected in series means the charge will remain constant and capacitance we can find out. Voltage will not necessarily remain constant. So we should not use this formula. We should go for this formula. So what they've given, two parallel bed capacitors X and Y have the same area of plates and same separation between the plates. So A is same, separation is also same. So suppose C1 is epsilon naught A by D. C2 is, so X has air, so that is for C1. Y is a dielectric of constant 2. So C2 will be I just told you K will be multiplied. So 2 into epsilon naught A into, that is 2C1. So C2 is 2C1. Now to a 12 volt battery. So anyway, now the ratio of electrostatic voltage we don't need here. The ratio of electrostatic energy. So ratio of electrostatic energy is Q square over 2, Q will be same, okay, over 2C1 into 2C2 over Q square. So C2 over C1. C2 over C1 means what? 2 is to 1. Because see C2 is 2 C1 and this is C1. So 2 is to 1. That is our answer, 2 is to 1. Next is which among the following is not a cause of power loss in a transformer? So here some of the concepts are like not in your syllabus. Like instance, this flux leakage is there. Electric flux shading is not properly done in primary and secondary coils. There is some flux leakage from primary to secondary coils. So that is a valid option. So this is actually a cause for power loss, but their work's not a cause for power loss. Eddy currents are produced in the soft iron core of a transformer. This is also in your syllabus, and this is a cause of power loss. Don't mind the birds. They always shout at this time every day, and I like it. Anyway, humming sound produced in the transformers due to magnetostriction. I will not be able to explain. I myself don't know the concept, to be completely honest with you guys. I don't know the entire concept, but just know that humming sound is produced and it is a cause for energy loss. Energy is lost in the form of sound. The last option that leaves with the last option, that is the correct option. Primary coil is made up of very thick copper wire. So that is, see, due to thick copper wire, the resistance will be less. So if resistance is more, hey guys, shut up. Don't be so loud today. So if resistance is low, then let me tell you, very thick wire we are using. Thick wire means area of cross section is R proportional to 1 by area of cross section. That means thick wire means area of cross section is high, so resistance will be decreasing, and if resistance is decreasing, then the current will be increasing. I mean, that is if resistance is decreasing, then that is never a cause of power loss. So this is the suitable option from the 4 options. Alternating voltage source of variable angular. Alternating voltage means it will produce alternating current. So alternating voltage source of variable angular frequency omega and fixed amplitude V is, that is the peak value, fixed voltage, is connected in series with a capacitance C and electric bulb of resistance R. So only capacitor is there in the circuit, nothing else. Bulb we have to forget, bulb we are doing for the bulb. So no inductor is there, no resistor, no single resistance is there, single resistor is there. Obviously the bulb is also sort of low, it has some resistance anyway. So inductance 0 they have written only. So when omega is increased, so due to capacitor, you see what? Capacitive reactance is 1 by C omega. So when omega increase, the reactance will decrease. And voltage equals I into capacitive reactance. So when this decrease, I will have to increase. Because voltage constant or fixed amplitude V. So if I is increasing, more current will pass through the bulb and it will grow brighter. The bulb will grow brighter, you see. Next is, this is a very important question, question number 33. This is also one of my favorite questions. So let me go to the next page. I know we are moving a bit fast, guys, but yeah, you can, I mean, nothing to do. I hope you'll be getting it, because we are not doing the basic revision here. We are just doing a basic quick revision. So anyway, what they've given is, you have a solid shell here with charge plus Q. See, a solid spherical conductor has charge plus Q and radius R. Now, where will the charge reside? So we know that for a conductor, the charge will always reside on the surface, only on the surface. So this radius is R, so the charge will be only on the surface. Plus charge only on the surface. Next we have a shell. Shell means this sort of shell. Like this part is solid, but this part is hollow. So this shell we have kept like this. Don't mind my drawing, but yeah, we have kept like this. This part is solid, and so this is, suppose we don't need the R2 or 3, we don't need this. Just mark the point. This is A, this is B, this is C, this is D. So this is my A, this is my B, this is my C, and this point is my D. Okay. So which of the following statement is true? So what they're asking, first of all, electric potential and electric field maximum value where and where. So electric field will be, see, actually see, we have a plus charge, so the electric field will emanate from this in all directions and move to infinity. But if I bring a minus charge near to it, the electric field will all come and enter the minus charge. The electric field will all come and enter the minus charge. So if it is given that it is surrounded by a solid spherical shell with charge minus Q. So this solid shell has a charge minus Q. Now this charge will reside on the outside surface or on the inside surface? Definitely on the inside surface, because this plus Q plus charges will attract the minus charge. So like this. And once they come inside, so the electric field lines will go point from the plus charge to the minus charge. Now nowhere else. All the field lines will be like, all the minus charges will pull all the field lines emanating from the plus charge towards itself. So electric field in the middle we are getting in this direction. Only from B to C we are getting electric field. So electric potential is maximum magnitude at C. Now where, see, now this is B and this is C. So where the magnitude is maximum. See, from B, at B the plus charges are close to each other because it's a sphere of smaller radius. But this is a sphere of larger radius. So here the minus charges are farther than each other. So the magnitude will be greater than B. And see, at C the distance is more. Like From the center, this much distance and this distance is more. So both electric field and electric potential, they're inversely proportional to the distance. So the only correct option will be both the electric potential and electric field achieve a maximum magnitude at B. The magnitude will maximum at B. Otherwise otherwise D, A you don't need to consider. There will be no electric field or potential at A and D. I hope this makes sense. A battery is connected to the conductor of non-uniform cross-section area. The quantities or quantity which remains constant is. So see, suppose like this they've given non-uniform cross-sectional area. So now electric field, everything will change basically, but one thing will remain constant. The amount of current that is entering, the amount of charge that is flowing, that same amount of charge must flow out also. Like suppose 2 ampere current is entering and 1 ampere current is flowing out. That is not possible. So whatever, even if it's like cross-sectional area is same, or if cross-sectional area is different, whatever be the case, the amount going in must be the amount coming out. So the only thing that remains constant is current only. The current, that's the rate of flow of charge. That will remain constant. 3 resistors. Yeah, sorry for the interruption guys. So 3 resistors having values R1, R2 and R3 are connected in series to a battery. Suppose R1 carries a current of 2 ampere, R2 has a resistance of 3 ohms and R3 dissipates 6 watts power. So first of all, R1, R2, R3 in series to a battery. Suppose R1 carries a current of 2 ampere and R1 is the first resistor in series. So the voltage will be, suppose V. So voltage we can find out because the R2 has a resistance, okay, R2 has a resistance of 3 ohms and R3 dissipates 6 ohms of power. R1 carries a current of 2 amperes. So I equals V by R. 2 equals V by R1, V equals 2R1 we can say. R2 has a resistance of 3 ohm. So the current will remain same, right? So current will remain same. So for R2, V equals IR2. Voltage will change. So I will remain same. So V2 will be equal to I means what? 2 and R2 has a resistance of 3 ohms. So 6. So V2 is 6, one thing we are getting, V2 is 6. Now R3 dissipates 6 watts of power. R3 dissipates 6 watts of power. So power is I into V. So that is 2 into 6. So that is 12. So what they've asked, the voltage across R3. So P equals IV. So power is given to be 6 watts. And I will be the constant because they are connected in series. So 6 equals 2 into V. This is for VR3. We are doing for R3. So VR3 will be 6 by 2. That is 3. So that is the answer. 3 volts. Okay. Next, this is also a very important question. Interesting question. Straight line plot showing the terminal potential difference. So this is the, first of all, what is the relation between the terminal potential difference and the internal resistance? So terminal potential difference, V equals, so yeah, actually wait a second. Actually it was V. I'm getting confused. Let me show you. Yeah, V terminal potential difference, that is V equals E minus IR. So V equals E minus IR. So we don't know the value of E. The graph is between V and I. So suppose when I is 0, then V is 5.6. So let us put I equal to 0. So V equals to E, in that case we will get, so E will be 5.6. One thing we got from here. And what they've asked. And suppose when current is 2, I mean when this V is 0, then current is 2. When V is 0, then E will be equal to IR, only then V can be 0. So then current is 2. So 5.6 equal to 2 into R. So 5.6 by 2 should be equal to R. They have the internal resistance, that is only they are asking, this is the internal resistance, actually we should write small r. So 5.6 by 2 is 2.8. So that is our answer, 2.8 ohms. Pretty simple. Next is, this is a pretty simple question, like a 10-meter long wire of uniform cross section and 20 ohm resistance is used in a potentiometer. The wire is connected in series with a battery of 5 volts along with an external resistance of 480 ohm. if an unknown EMF E is balanced at 6 meter length of the wire, then the value of unknown EMF is. So unknown EMF value is actually K into L. So K is the potential gradient. Potential gradient means the voltage of wire they've given. Wire is connected in series wire 5 volt along with the external resistance of 480 ohm, crossing 20 ohm resistance. So this will be, K will be voltage over the length of the wire. So basically, so first of all, what will be the current? Current will be the total voltage E over R, like the resistance of the wire plus the external resistance R plus R dash. So the total voltage is given 5. External, connected in series with a battery of 5 volt. So I will be 5 over 480 plus 20, something it will be. So that is 480 plus 20 is 500. So I will be 0.01 ampere. Now voltage will be what? IR. So the resistance along this is 20 ohm. See, we are trying to find from this point, from this, suppose this is P and this is Q. So between PQ it is given that 5 volt along the external resistance and 480 ohm. So 480 ohm is the external resistance, but along PQ the resistance of the wire is 20 ohm. So V equals IR. Current we have just found out to be 0.1. So 0.01 into 20. That will give us the voltage. So that will be what? How much? 0.2. So now 10 meter potentiometer wire balances 0.2 voltage. So basically we have to divide the potential gradient, means we have to divide by the length. So 0.2 by 10 we have to do, that is 0.02. 0.2 by 10 into this we have to do the, this is the balancing length. This is LB, let me write. So the balancing length is 6 meter. It's given that it is balanced at 6 meter. So this is 0.02 is my K. So KL will be 0.02 into 6, 0.12. So none of the options are matching on this page. It will be 0.12, the next page. I'm showing you 0.12 volt. I hope you got it. Pretty simple. The current sensitivity of a galvanometer let us go to a fresh page first of all. It's becoming untidy. So current sensitivity of a galvanometer increases by 20% if its resistance also increases by 20%, the voltage sensitivity. So current sensitivity means the phi, the angle over I. Voltage sensitivity means phi over the voltage V. And this is equal to, suppose this current sensitivity is IG. So voltage sensitivity, suppose VG. So VG equals to phi over V. This can be written as V equals what? IR. So phi over IR, that is IG over R. We can write. Okay. I hope no problem till here. So galvanometer. So VG equals IG over R. That means IG over R means what? Rho L, IGA over rho L. Sorry, we don't need this. So say current sensitivity increases by 20%, resistance also increases by 25%. So this VG increases by 20%. So VG dash will be IG plus 20% means 20 by 100 IG divided by resistance increase by 25%. So that is, this is what? 0.2. So 1 plus 0.2 is 1.2 IG over, this is what? 1 over 4. That means so basically 125, if you do directly 125 R over 100. So now this is my new VG. So the voltage sensitivity will what? How can we relate this to the old VG? So this will be 120 over 125 IG by R. Now IGR by R means the old VG. So old VG. So by this much percent. So that means by this much percent. So new VG new will be 120 over 125 VG. So the percentage they have asked, the voltage sensitivity will decrease by what percent or increase by what percent? So percentage will be what? 120 over 125 minus 1 over what? 120 over 1, sorry, over VG, over 1, and I'm actually at VG actually, minus 1 over 1, or it should be, yeah, so 120 over 125. So 120 minus 125 over 125. So minus 5 over 125. Wait a second. First of all, this thing what you're getting, 120 over 125 is basically 24 over 25. 5 into 25 is 125 and 5 into 24 is 120. So this is 24 over 25 minus VG over VG. So VG will just get cancelled. So I was doing right only. So minus 1 over into 100 na. So I just forgot the into 100 part. So in this case into 100, so minus 4. So I was doing right only, I just forgot the into 100. Extremely sorry for the inconvenience. So decrease by 4%. Minus means decrease and we are getting 4, so decrease by 4%. Next is 3 infinitely long parallel straight current carrying wires A, B, C are kept at equal distance from each other. So these equal distance R, and they are kept 2I, I and I current is flowing in the same direction. The net force on C. So let me draw it first. This is R and this is R. So A, B, C. So the force on C due to A will be what? What is the formula for the force? Suppose we are considering the force per unit length. So what is the formula for this F of C? That is mu naught I, the current is I in C, and then we have to consider the current in A, that is I into 2I over 2 pi R. 2 pi R is the distance between A and C, so that will be 2 pi into 2R. So 1 to cancel, we'll get mu naught I square over 2 pi R. Next is F on C due to B, that is mu naught I, this will be again I because in B the current is I, so mu naught I square over 2 pi, here the distance is R, so mu naught I square over 2 pi, so same distance we are seeing. Now the wire C experiences net force. If the net force on wire C, if the current in wire A is reversed. Now if I reverse this, then this will become minus. So the net force will be this minus this will be 0. So the net force will be 0. That is the answer. Now the next few questions I will not be doing because extremely calculation intensive. Like just you have to apply the formula, nothing else, but extremely calculation intensive. So you'll get the solutions on the internet, and I would ask you to try the calculations, because anyway I have no right to ask you because I myself have not done the calculations. I don't have that much of patience. Like these questions, like in a hydrogen atom, the electron moves in an orbit of radius 0.5 angstrom, making 10 revolutions. So frequency is given to you. So you have to find the magnetic moment. So these questions, like then air cooled. So air cooled solenoid with length 30 centimeter, area of cross section 25 centimeter, and number of turns 800, carries a current of 2.5 ampere. The current is suddenly switched off in a brief time 10 to minus 3. So all the concepts using Faraday's law you can find out, but very much calculation intensive. So these 4 questions I'm skipping. This is power dissipated at resonant condition. This one you can do, but again it's a calculation intensive, and yeah, this is a circular loop of radius 0.3 centimeter lies parallel to much bigger circular loop of radius. So this you have to use that formula which we did, the magnetic field due to the current carrying circular loop on its axis. And you also have to use the concept of mutual inductance. Both these concepts you have to use. This is a bit tough question actually, but yeah, anyway. Next is, if both the number of turns and core length of an inductor is doubled, keeping other factors constant, then its self-induction will be. I'm extremely sorry for this because it will take a lot of time. You can just check it out. Check it out otherwise. I'm not doing this question. I'm sorry for this. Just 4 questions I'm skipping. Actually 4 questions. Yeah, no problem. So if both the number of turns and core length inductor is doubled, keeping other factors the self. So see, what is the formula first of all? Phi is proportional to I. So phi equal to Li, where L is called the self-inductance. So L equals to phi over I. Phi is the BA into number of turns, so you have to consider NBA over I. Now B for a solenoid is, like inductor means it's basically solenoid type, so mu naught Ni. So N mu naught N over L, I, because the small n is n over L, the unit per unit, the number of turns per unit length. Ni into A. That is mu naught n square. Now here we have a I. This is phi by I. Okay, so here we have a I. So I will basically get cancelled. So mu naught n square A over L. So both the number of turns, that means n is doubled. So n is doubled means this will become 4. So because n square, so 2 square is 4. 4 mu naught n square. And the core length is also doubled. N square A over 2L. So this is the same quantity, but we have 4 by 2. So 2. Now this quantity will also get doubled. So the self-inductance will also be doubled. Next is very important, the assertion reason type questions. So here we hardly need the pen and paper, but anyway. So assertion is to increase the range of an ammeter, we must connect a suitable high resistance in series with it. So this is actually, see, to increase the range of an ammeter, that means to increase the amount of current that the ammeter will be showing. We need to allow more current to pass through the ammeter. Just understand simply. To increase the range of an ammeter means the ammeter will show us more deflection, more current. That means we should allow the current to pass through it first of all. If we are increasing the high resistance in series, that means we are increasing the resistance. So we are obstructing the flow of current. This is obviously wrong. Assertion is wrong. And the reason is the ammeter is with increased range should have high resistance. Ammeter with increased range should have high resistance. No, that is what we told. That is obviously not the case. We should connect the resistance in parallel. We should connect the resistance or small shunt resistance in parallel with a galvanometer to get an ammeter, because we need to decrease the resistance. An ideal ammeter has zero resistance actually. So here are the options. Both A and R. A is assertion, R is reason. So both of them are true and R is the correct expression of A. No. Both of them are true and R is not the correct expression of A. No. A is true but R is false. No. A is false and R is also false. This will be the option. This one is C. An electron has high potential energy when it is at a location associated with more negative value of potential, and a low potential energy when it is at a location with a more positive potential. So more negative value of potential means low potential, and more positive potential means higher potential. So that means they are trying to say that the electron has high potential energy when it is at a location associated with a more negative value of potential. Now is this true? This is actually true, because you see electron has a negative charge. So this negative charge is actually inverting everything else. See, suppose we have plus Q to minus Q. So electric field will obviously point from plus Q to minus Q. But potential decreases. Potential will decrease in this direction. Potential decreases in the direction of electric field. Now so potential will increase in this direction. And electron always travels electron means what? It will always travel opposite to the direction of electric field. Like from minus to plus it will travel. Electron is minus, so it will travel from minus to plus. Electron always flows opposite to the direction of electric field. That means electron is going from low potential to high potential basically. So electron is going from low potential to high potential. Now in the reason they have given electrons move from a region of high potential to low potential. So reason is false. Assertion is true but reason is false. Assertion is true. Why? Because electron is moving from a region of low potential to high potential. So that means for the electron the potential energy will be, an electron has a higher potential energy when it's a location associated with a more negative value of potential. So the electron's potential energy will be high at the index, though it is a low potential. So that means A is true but R is false. Next is a magnetic needle is free to rotate in a vertical plane, orients itself with its axis vertically at the poles of the earth. So see, at the poles of the earth, there is no horizontal component, only vertical component is there. So magnet, if you take a normal compass, there the compass will point in all directions, because the compass will be confused. Such a compass is only allowed to rotate in the horizontal direction. But if a magnetic needle is free to rotate in the vertical plane, it orients itself with its axis vertical at the points of the earth, at the poles of the earth. This is true. The reason they have given is that at the poles of the earth, the horizontal component of earth's magnetic field will be 0. This is true. That is why only they will point at the vertical. So both A and R are true and R is the correct expression of A. Next is a proton and an electron with same momenta they have given you. Enter a magnetic field in a direction at right angles to the line. So if they enter directions right angle to the force, then we have to use this formula basically. mv squared by r centripetal force should be equal to the qvb sin 90. So sin 90 is 1. So 1v cancel. That means mv over qb equals to r. Right. mv over qb equals to r. So mv is the momenta. So mv is same because they have given that electron and proton with same momenta. And q, the charge on an electron is the same as the charge on the proton. The magnitude of the charge is the same. So Q is also same and B is also same because same magnetic field, right? So radius will be same. So they are telling that once they enter magnetic field in direction right angles, the radius of the path followed by them will be same. This is true, absolutely true. Reason they have given, electron has less mass than proton. Now this is also true statement. Electron has less mass than proton. True statement. But is this the reason? The reason is that the momenta of them are same. Electron has less mass than proton. That is not the reason that the radius will be the same. So both A and R are true, but the number of shake is second option. But R is not the correct explanation of A. Last assertion reason. On increasing the current sensitivity of a galvanometer by increasing the number of turns may not necessarily increase its voltage sensitivity. The resistance of the coil of galvanometer increases on increasing the number of turns. See, when you're increasing the number, suppose you have a coil here. If you're increasing the number of turns, you're adding more wires. So the resistance of the wire, so the current has to face more resistance. The resistance will increase. So R is a correct statement. A is also a correct statement because, see, on increasing the current sensitivity of the galvanometer, suppose we have the current sensitivity here, that is phi by I, and voltage sensitivity is phi by IR. So current sensitivity is, suppose Ig is equal to IV over R. So if I increase the current sensitivity, the resistance is also increasing. So IV may be changed, may not be changed, may remain same, many things can happen. So it is not necessary that voltage sensitivity will increase. So it is not necessary. So this is true, and the reason is that the resistance will also change. So that the reason is also correct. So both A and R are true, and R is the correct expression of assertion. Okay. Next is section C. This question number 50 we are having. Yes. So a small object with charge Q and weight mg is attached to one end of a string of length L attached to a stationary support. The system is placed in a uniform horizontal electric field E as shown in the accompanying figure. In the presence of the field, the string makes a constant angle. Constant means the string is not swinging. It is at a constant angle like this with the electric field. Due to the, actually the string should have, originally if we have a string here, and a string and suppose I'm hanging a bob. So it will originally, even if we swing it, it will come to rest at this mean position. But if due to the electric field, this electric field is pulling this charge and it is keeping it fixed at this position at some angle theta. So at some angle theta, right? Now this is my string of length L. This is my angle theta and this is my weight of mass mg. So weight will obviously act in vertical downward direction mg. Tension will act in this direction. Tension T, tension due to the wire, tension force. And the electric field will act in which direction? So electric field is pulling it like this. So electric field will act in this direction. Now the E. So electric force is QE. Force is Q into E. So the resultant of QE and mg must be like this because it must be like this. Otherwise it cannot balance the tension. So it is balance the tension. That's why only this is staying fixed at this position. So resultant of this and this must be equal to the tension. So from here, see what they asked, the magnitude of Q, the magnitude charge. See, if it was a negative charge moves from like opposite to the electric field. So it should have moved that way. It has moved this way, means it is a positive charge. Definitely it's a positive charge. Now the magnitude of the charge. So come to the magnitude of the charge. Yeah. So it's pretty simple. So suppose this is break T into components. So this is suppose this is my theta, or let us do directly. We don't need to break T into components. This is my theta, right? So this is also my theta. So tan theta will be QE over mg. Q will be mg over E tan theta. How I am doing? This is my right angle triangle. So this is equal to this. So QE over mg will be tan theta. So Q will be positive, we know from this, and value of Q will be mg over E into tan theta. So Q is mg over E into tan theta and positive. Okay. The paper ends here. So yeah, I targeted under 1 hour, but anyway it's already over 1 hour 4 minutes. No problem. Actually I have to do the videos for the electromagnetic induction and magnetism and matter today. Right, so I don't have much time. So that's why I'm moving a bit fast. I hope you'll not mind. A free electron and a free proton are placed between two oppositely charged parallel plates. So this is plus charge, this is minus charge, this is a proton, this is an electron. Both are closer to the positive plate than the negative plate. You can see they're closer to the positive plate. Which of the following statements is true? The force on option, the force on the proton is greater than the force on the electron. Is this true? See, force on proton and force on electron, force depends on the QE. Force is Q into E. Now, charge of proton, charge of electron is same. And their electric field, they're located at the same distance. So, electric field will basically be the same. So, the force will be the same in both the cases. So, force on proton is greater than force of electron is a wrong statement. They have asked which statement is true. Now, among 2 and 3, you see, one is saying potential energy of proton is greater than electron. Another is saying potential energy is the same. So, obviously, if 2 is true, then 3 cannot be true, and if 3 is true, then 2 cannot be true. So obviously, you see now from the options, this is how you have to do. You don't have to think too much. Just think 3 and 1. See, 1 is false, we know. So 3 and 1, 1 only, 2 and 1 only. These options cannot be the options. So we have only one options, 2 only. And if 2 is true, then obviously 3 cannot be true. But if you want me to explain it, then also I can do that. The potential energy of the proton is greater than that of the electron. Simply because for the electron, the potential energy, we did this option, right? In assassin reasoning, we did this question. An electron has a high potential energy when it's at a location associated with the more negative value of potential. So for electron, the potential energy will increase. The potential energy will increase in the opposite direction. Potential will obviously be alright, but potential energy will increase in the opposite direction. So the potential energy of the proton is greater than that of the electron. So 2 only is the correct option. Next is last, we have a case study. Read the following paragraph and answer the questions. So here we have a power station, then we have a step-up transformer, which is transmission line, then step-down transformer, and then we have a city substation. Then from here the current is coming to our houses. Large-scale transmission and distribution of electrical energy over long distances is done with the use of transformers. The voltage output of the generator is stepped up. It is then transmitted over long distances into an area substation near the consumers. Then the voltage is stepped down. It is further stepped down at distributing substations and utility poles before a power supply of 240 volt reaches our homes. So which of the following statement is true? Energy is created when a transformer steps up the voltage. Stepping up the voltage is done to reduce the power loss, but energy is not created. So this is false. A transformer is designed to convert AC to DC, false. Step-up transformer increases the power for transmission. Step-up transformer decreases the power loss, but that does not mean it is increasing the power. So this is false. Very sensitive area. That does not mean it is increasing the power. Last option is correct. Step-down transformer decreases the AC voltage. Step-up transformer increases the voltage and step-down transformer decreases the voltage. Not increases the power. Next is, suppose first of all come to question number 54, because these two questions that we need to do the calculations I will show in the copy. Now we need to step up the voltage for power transmission so that the current is reduced and consequently the I square R loss is cut down. I square R means heat was I square RT, so the power will be I square R, right? Power is like energy by time. So I square RT over T, that is I square R. So to reduce this is actually true, to reduce the I square R loss, to reduce the power loss, the current is reduced, but the voltage is increased, the power loss is also increased. This is obviously not true. Power is increased, voltage is decreased, so these are not true. So the option A will be true. Next, come to question number 55 or 53. Only 2 questions are left, 53 and 55. So 53 says that if the secondary coil has a greater number of turns than the primary coil, the voltage is stepped up. See, for a transformer, basically we have a primary coil NP over secondary coil NS. It is equal to voltage P, like the voltage across primary coil over voltage S. I mean, voltage and this number of turns is directly proportional. So secondary coil has a greater number of turns. So NS greater than NP. That means NP by NS lesser than 1. That means VP by VS lesser than 1. That means VP lesser than VP we can say. Sorry, VP lesser than VS we can say. So that is the option. See, VP lesser than VS, or we can say VS greater than VP. Voltage is stepped up. VS greater than VP. The arrangement is called a step-up transformer. Simple. Last question. The power transmission line feeds input power at 2300 volts to a step-down transformer. So see, with its primary windings having 4000 turns, the number of turns in the secondary coils to get output power of 230 volts. So you see, again the voltage and that number of turns, that will be equal, I told you. So input voltage is 2300 over we need 230 volt. That will be equal to primary windings having 4000 turns and secondary windings having how many turns, we have to find out. Number of turns in the secondary coil. So primary by secondary equal to primary by secondary. So 4000 by, we have to find out. So we can cancel this. We can cancel this also. So 23 cancel. So answer will be, so 400 by x equal to 1. X will be equal to 400. That is our answer, 400. So that's it for this video, guys, and please stay tuned in for this on this channel for further videos, educational videos and aviation videos and more. So those physics videos I will be coming by today or tomorrow, so please watch them, and please subscribe to my channel if you like, and that's it. Thank you.